the level of your presence correlates with the level of your impact on the client. There's only one person who is you. Like there's competition for some of the things that you might do or some things that you might provide, but there's no competition for who you are.
And a lot of coaches jump into this because they've had some kind of transformation. So that's there. The problem is that they stop growing. A lot of times they share stories from like a decade ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They're not taking risks now. The cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you see.
There's clients at every stage of the continuum, right? The more experience you have, the more skills you have, the higher you can charge, and vice versa. So if you're at the beginning and you don't have tons of skills and experience, you don't have to charge that much. Start where you're at. Coaches Nation, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Journey podcast. Today, we are going to talk about the thing that coaches always talk about being afraid of, which is competition. If you ever walk to a corner where there's a gas station and you see 3 more gas stations on the same corner, that could be a form of competition for that gas station. But there's a reason they're all together, right? Because people there need gas, and lots of people need different kinds of gas. But there's a lot more to this fear than you think. So it's about you personally, right? And so, like, am I good enough? Like, who's going to listen to me? There's other coaches doing what I'm doing. If I want to be a health coach, there's so many better health coaches than me. I struggled with this for a long time. Faisal, I want to hear from you too. I'm Daniel Fernandez, and I'm here with my co-host, Faisal Insan. We are co-hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast today, and we are excited to talk about this fear of competition. Faisal?
Yeah, it takes me back to a question one of my close friends asked me. This was right the same year that I got started as a coach, and he asked me this, and it was funny how much it got to me. He asked it in a way where he was trying to understand. He wasn't like meaning critical or anything, being critical or anything, but the way he asked was, well, because I was trying to do videos and put my stuff out there. It's like, well, why should I listen to you versus Brendan Burchard? Or why should somebody listen to you versus Brendan Burchard? And as soon as he said that, I just shrunk into my like, I have no idea. I send people to Brendan Burchard all the time, a lot more than I send to my content. And
Totally.
that really stumped me for a while. Like, that got stuck in my head, and I didn't know how to process that. I didn't know how to
Same.
make sense of that. I don't know how to feel that or process the feelings behind it. And there were lots of feelings. I was like, well, I don't know if I'm as good as him. I don't know if I can add as much value as him. I don't know if I'm good enough in my training. And I wasn't, to be honest. But that wasn't even coaching. The funny thing was, he was comparing the training piece. He wasn't comparing the coaching. But in my mind, because I had such big insecurities, it automatically went towards the coaching side. And and today it's the same. Like, he's way ahead of me, but that never hits me as a problem. So I want to go into this. Is like, how are you thinking about all this? Because there are a lot of successful coaches. There are a lot of coaches who are putting themselves out there, and there is competition. But what does that mean for you as a coach?
Yeah. One of the things that you made me think about when you said that is when I was early in coaching, and I think this is true for a lot of coaches, we think it's about the information. And so, like, yeah, someone's going to follow like a Brendan Burchard or a Tony Robbins or a Mel Robbins or whoever it is that you're following. They're going to give you a lot of great information. They're probably going to give you some food for thought and some insights. But there's a difference between coaching and information, because yeah, I might not have all the information on the neuroscience behind sleep if I want to be a sleep coach. Someone out there is always going to be more of an expert than me. But what brings value is not just the information. It's about how you bring people through to a transformation. Like, people who need coaching are going for a transformation in their whatever it is that they're looking for help with. And so if you're a transformational coach, people who take people through a mindset shift, information alone will never change their mindset. So just if you're comparing yourself to information providers or to experts who know a lot, that's not the only dimension that matters to clients. And it's definitely not the only dimension that matters to the skill you have as a coach. Because if you just spend all your time teaching people things, it's not going to change their life. You have to take them through experience. You have to be present with them. And this already, the level of your presence correlates with the level of your impact on the client. So if you're not present, but you have tons of great information, that might not make the difference. So if you're comparing yourself and thinking there's competition in this niche for information, that's not really what it's about. Yeah, it's good to share information because people, as part of the coaching process, need to get educated perhaps to help them through those mindset shifts and through that transformation as a support in that process. But most of the transformation is changing their habits, their actions, the way they think, and how they integrate and apply the information that they're learning. And applying too much information can stunt that process.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have a visitor here. Say hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. Okay, Anya, I have to go. So that's the challenge of being in one space with everybody. She's very curious. She wants to know what's going on. You're gonna be broadcasted to the whole world. Just so you know.
Yeah, everybody's watching right now.
And yeah, that's one side of it. But the other, I would say the other side of this whole thing is that we're not even meant to our direct competition is not Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchard. It's likely people who are getting started with, and there is competition in that area. But actually, competition is a good thing. Exactly as you kind of pointed out, that why are there 3 gas station in an intersection? Well, for one thing, there's a lot of demand, and that's the first piece to recognize, that a lot of coaches, when they look at like everybody's calling themselves a coach. Well, why are they? Because there's demand. They're seeing other successful coaches, they're seeing people searching for that thing, they're seeing it become a norm. So that's a thing. Now they're going towards it. But now there's the other side of it. Now, if you Daniel and I have been in this world Daniel has been there for a little bit longer, let's say a decade plus. And maybe you can share your experience around this. From all the coaches that got started with us, I'd say a very small fraction of them have sustainable, successful businesses at this point.
Yeah. Most do not.
Most do not have it. And even though a lot got started, so the question is, what are you doing in the process? And one of the biggest predictors of that is, how long have you been in this industry active? Not just calling yourself a coach, but actively working as a coach to serve people. And that gives you a much higher probability that you're going to be successful than others. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how many people are there.
Yeah, you make me think a couple of things, Faisal. One is the idea of competition is a good thing. If there's no competition at all for what you do, is it possible that there's no demand? That is possible. It's also possible that there is, and you're discovering a brand new niche, but especially at the beginning of your journey, it's usually the case that somebody else is doing similar things out there, or many people are doing. The more people doing similar things, probably the better, because if those people are being successful at it, that means there's enough demand to actually have that sort of approach or that niche or the types of transformation that's needed to be served, right? And so, like, yeah, if you have 1 gas station versus 4 gas stations tells me that a lot of people need gas here. Otherwise, those 4 gas stations will not survive very long. So there's a market for it. But there's another whole part of this. There's the third side to that coin now, which is that there's only one person who is you. Like, there's competition for some of the things that you might do or some things that you might provide, but there's no competition for who you are and who you become and how you build yourself up, the way that you show up in the world, your own particular style, your personal life and professional experiences that you bring, your own viewpoint. The people out there who are doing what you do might have a different viewpoint from you. In fact, they almost certainly do have a different viewpoint. And you can take the things that you like from others in that world and leave the things you don't like, because you're going to do it your own way. And as you learn to do it your own way through, I think experience is really important. You're going to figure it out for yourself, what you bring, and have more confidence in that value and the uniqueness of you. And so, like, it's really easy to think like, like, I'm no different from the next person, but you're totally different. And one exercise you can do to see that is catalog some of your life experiences, catalog some of the things, especially the adversity that you've been through. If you've been through adversity, that is a really powerful way to think about what you learned and how you grew through that, and some stories you can tell that tell clients like what's unique about you. And there you might come up with some signature stories in that area around what happened. Like, I have one around my mentor when I was at General Motors in corporate. I won't tell a story now, but I have a story about a mentor who changed my life. That I went through an adversity as a leader in that company. I spent 2 years, and that adversity was really powerful because then I spent the next 8 years going through my own transformation. So that's a powerful piece of leadership, uh, you know, adversity that I learned and had to go through. And I figured out a lot of stuff. So I can help a lot of people that way. And my own particular approach and voice here is unique. There's not really competition for me because part of coaching is the relationship that you have with people.
Yeah. And which connects back to what you said around transformation. The transformation, and this is why we in the coaching world we say you're client zero. There would have to be some kind of transformation on your side to help others get transformations, and usually connects back to your story, usually connects back to what you've gone through. You're not the important piece here, but people need to hear and connect with that story for them to go forward. And that's why when you run a workshop, when you're speaking, when you're doing anything, even my first coaching session, I always go, unless if they don't know my story, I'll always go back to the story, which is the origin story. And this is why also in movies you see origin story. Why are origin stories so big? Because people connect with the character in the movie. And usually you're sharing this. One of my favorite questions that I recently started asking the past 6 months after I share my story. I didn't used to ask this because I used to be very insecure about sharing my own story. Now when I ask them at the end of the story, I'll be like, what did this tell you about your story? Because the important
Absolutely.
part about this story was, and then people start connecting the dots. Oh, he's sharing it so we connect with our story, not for himself. While they're connecting with me, they're connecting with their own story. And this is what motivational speakers do. They connect people with their own story, with their own why, with their own stuff. And they think they're getting motivated by the other, except they're realizing their own whys and their own narrative and their own story behind the picture. And so that transformation, which is the key to this whole process, cannot happen without you having to go through that transformation. I think the whole journey of you building a business, a coaching path, is your transformation for your growth, but also you're supporting other people too. And a lot of coaches jump into this because they've had some kind of transformation, so that's there. The problem is that they stop growing. A lot of times they share stories
Yeah.
from like a decade ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They're not taking risks now. They're not going tours. They're and I actually even talked to a coach that I met last year, and he kept talking about the struggle he had 20 years ago. And then I'm like, that's incredible. And like, what's happening now in your life? And you could tell he hasn't taken any risks for a long, long time, and he keeps going back to that old narrative, which is fine. You can share that, but then now you've kind of stopped growing, and that shows in your process, which connects back to what Daniel is saying around your uniqueness. This is why you're gonna kind of go above competition, is that your narrative, your story, how you process things and how you help other people process things and see things are very, very different than the next person, because your life experiences are so different. And that's where competition stops being a competition, because you're selling a custom, unique, for most coaches, high ticket programs. You're not selling a training program like Brennan Burchard in the beginning.
Yeah, and something you're saying is actually really, really important. You touched on it multiple times. One is that, yeah, you are client zero. But another way to say that, sort of like you were talking about, if this person has not had any growth or risk in their life for 20 years, they have that one story, and that was relevant then. It's probably still relevant now. But what's more relevant is, are you still growing and transforming today? Because if you're expecting your client to grow and transform with you, and you're not a good role model for that, it's going to be an impediment, not only to them, but to your confidence and your coaching, your own coaching, and your own progress as a coach. Like, being a coach it's like one of the reasons I love coaching as a career is it requires you to keep growing. And one of my biggest values is growth and evolution. And so like that's what I seek to gain for myself and for people that I'm connected to and that I interact with and that I influence. I want to see growth and evolution. That's what I want. And that's one of the things that excites me about coaching, is like I realized that you're so much better when you're growing as a coach, if you're growing as a person. And your clients benefit from seeing your growth. If they can see you, and this is why you also share a little bit about yourself along the way. You don't make it about yourself, but as Faisal said, it's about how they relate to you. If you share the stories about your growth, like right now, I'm going through some insane level growth in my personal life. I've had 2 kids. I had a baby last year, and coming out of that, baby fog, I had to rebuild for my new life with kids and family. And so I've been
I
working really,
wonder,
really hard on that.
are those stories showing up in your coaching sessions? I'm
Totally
curious.
are. Yeah, they totally
Totally
are.
up, right?
I talk a lot about
Yeah.
what's going on in my life
Yeah.
because, and this in January, it's been really interesting. A lot of clients and others and prospective clients and things have said, Happy New Year. How's your 2024? I've been saying the same thing. And it's really great to be able to say, like, here's how I've really changed in the last 3 months. I've rebuilt
Yeah.
habits around this. I've taken over, different parts of the family life and the home. And I am feeling really energized. And it wasn't always true. Like sometimes I was feeling really like overwhelmed by the whole baby life. But
Yeah.
right now I feel really, really charged up and I see the next level of growth and I'm always reaching for it. And I'm in the game every day of that personal growth and transformation. So if I'm doing that, then I can also act as a role model, which creates a lens or a focusing of that energy for the client to understand, yeah, you're in the container with somebody who's transforming themselves. So it makes it safer and easier for them to do so. Because it's a role modeling thing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's very powerful. So even today, I had a sales call right after a call this morning, and it was so interesting how much of this person's future life was aligned exactly like my life is set up. And that's pretty much usually what I see is that a lot of the people that kind of work with me, they either have aspirations towards the life that I have built, or they're going through similar challenges as I'm going through. So it's either aspirations that they're working towards, where I have either been there or I am there now, or I've already done that, or they've gone through very similar challenges. So it's really relatable for them. So a couple of things came up when this potential client was talking about his family and everything, and he had kind of concerns about his parents' well-being and wanting to spend time together, and and it's not a surprise when I share is like, you know what, that was one of the things that I worked on to be closer with them. And not only that, they're actually literally, they were sitting right there having breakfast, and as soon as I showed that, you could see his tears. He's like, that's what I want. I want to create that. And I didn't show that to, oh, okay, I can do them. I showed them like, you can do this. This is the same process. I went through the very similar thinking process, very similar struggle in there, and it shows up every part of our life. And I've also seen the other side of it when coaches actually their own conscience doesn't allow to go further in coaching. We were pointing to the confidence because and you will hear this sometimes from coaches. Oh, I decided to go in this other area and focus on this business because I didn't. And all you have to do is dig a little bit deeper. If you dig a little bit deeper, when coaches say I didn't go in this direction, not always. Always there's of course exceptions to this, but a lot of times is that it's like there's a part of them that didn't allow them to go there because that was enough for their growth, or they had kind of stopped their growth at that point, either in their relationship, in their spiritual journey, in their day-to-day stuff that they were working on. There's a part of them that didn't allow them to move forward. Why? Because they weren't tackling those things. None of that means that you need to be perfect in any area. None of us are, but it means that you need to be going in that journey with your client. And the way I picture it is that I think the best forms of coaching happen when you're kind of going into the unknown, holding your client's hand. You don't know what's going on. They don't know what you're going on, but you relate with each other's journey to a point where you trust each other to go on that journey. And if you can't relate with that journey or that adventure, it's very hard for the client to hold your hand, kind of go in there. That's kind of how I look
Yeah,
at it.
yeah. Which actually brings up the whole point of kind of what we're talking about, which is around competition. It's like there's not really competition if you are the person that the client trusts. If you're the person the client trusts in their life, and sometimes this is about timing too, right? So, for example, if your client has a real need right now to move forward in this area, if you've had a discovery session with them and they're ready and it's time for them, and you're there with them and they trust you, you've taken them through that process, the competition might be there if they, spent another few months looking around for coaches, but they may not want to do that. They might have you right in front of them, they're ready to go, and they don't want that delay. Right. And so competition doesn't have to be like just the existence of people, right? It's when is the client ready to go? And when do they want to make that progress? And how urgent is that for them? And a lot of the time, if you can help them see how urgent it is for themselves in their own life, because it's what they care about, they will trust you more. And if you build that relationship of service and where you demonstrate that you're here for their benefit, you become their trusted person, their trusted advisor, their trusted coach, their trusted place to go where they can get that feedback and that, sacred, as like there's a sacred space they have with you that they cannot find somewhere else very easily.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
And
it's partly
that's
about the
really
investment
true.
that you make into the relationship with them. And
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
demonstrate that and they see that over and over, you become trusted enough that they want to stay with you, right?
Yeah, for sure. And part of this is, and there's one piece of the competition I want to go into in a little bit, which is connected to your skill sets, which is a very important piece around there. The competition will be around the skill set piece over time as you stay in there. But for you to get started as a coach and become successful, it takes a little bit of time, but it requires a lot of dedication to your own growth, to learning the process and implementing and taking risks and going towards the things that you're likely afraid of. I actually did a training session on courage. My favorite quote was, the cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek, by Joseph Campbell. And again, it's that process of you being able to deal with that. You're going to help your clients go through that as well. And there's one thing we need to understand about where the coaching business is at, the industry of the coaching world. And there's a parallel to this industry, which is the world of psychology, world of therapy. The world of therapy, there's a lot, even though there are a lot of therapists coming around, there are not enough therapists. In fact, there are not enough good therapists either. Not only there are not, like if you look at every region in US and Canada, there are always, just like doctors, there are more clients than the therapists that are available. In fact, they're having a hard time finding the right therapist, especially after COVID and all these things, but in general. But even in that situation, there's such a big market for it that there's a need for it. But that might be the future of coaching at some point, maybe a decade, maybe 2 decades, we don't know. But right now, coaching is a very unique place, is that where you can kind of create your own pockets of monopoly, just like kind of think of Google with its monopoly as a bigger thing, but think of every small coaching business as its own monopoly, because there are no actual standards around. That doesn't mean you take advantage of people or anything, but that means that because there is no actual industry and regulations and systems set up in the background, that means their clients will only trust certain people with certain things. And if you can build a unique brand, even if it's referral based like Daniel has, and Daniel can share a little bit about that. His brand is very different than mine. It's built around completely referral, no outside, even though mine is the same, except I've pushed on the social media and marketing and other things too. So coaching world is in a very unique place, which means that there's a lot of opportunity for coaches to build a very sustainable business, with a lot of leverage. And if you get that, you understand that there are actually, even if there are hundreds of thousands of new coaches coming in, there's a lot of demand for it. And we can see the data that the industry has grown over twice in the past 2.5 years, if you look at the statistics. How does that happen? But I'll let Daniel go into that, because I mean, Daniel's business is so different than mine. We don't look at each other as competitors, even if we're in the same. In fact, I've actually trained like at least 5 or 6 coaches in the same niche that I'm in. And they're operating just the same as me. And in fact, one of them, because he was my client, he's like, I don't want to take clients from you. I feel bad about it. I'm like, don't worry, you're not going to take clients from me. There are more than enough people for both of us.
Yeah, that's what you just said, Faisal, is actually the real message. There are more than enough clients for all the coaches. But the coaches have to stay in the game and figure out how to do the coaching business part of it. And from a competition perspective, like Faisal said, he's training people to be quote competitors, but they're not really competitors. Because if you think about this on a continuum, there are always going to be coaches that are better than you in your quote niche or whatever. There's always going to be coaches that are quote not as good as you. And I just mean from a skills point of view, from an experience point of view. How many sessions you've had, how many types of clients you've had to learn from. And like if you've been in the industry 10 years, your coaching is going to be better than someone who's been in the industry for 1 year, right? So there's, of course, there's a continuum there, but it's okay because there's clients at every stage of the continuum, right? The more experience you have, the more skills you have, the higher you can charge. and vice versa. So if you're at the beginning, you don't have tons of skills and experience, you don't have to charge that much. Start where you're at, right? And maybe you could because you have other skills to offer. So like the thing that's nice about the open-ended nature of the coaching industry is that you can charge whatever you want. If people will pay it and they get the value and they refer people, then you know you're on the right track, right? But that also takes time to develop, and it's okay that it takes time. I want you to be patient with the process that it takes to build your confidence and to go and get experience to become the kind of coach where you feel like your clients are connected and you have a relationship with them and you know that you can add value, so that you don't see everything in terms of, oh, these people are better, those people are better. I mean, I still see that sometimes for myself, but it's not a program in my brain that runs very loud, right? I think about like other coaches that I know, Faisal, you're included, who have more experience on some sides of the coaching business than me. And but then I think about like that is a thought that I don't need to focus on right now. The focus for me is, how am I building those relationships and becoming that trusted person with my people? And how am I building that up? And so I like to think of it as like there's people ahead of you that you can learn from and people behind you that you can help. They're not your competition, they're your colleagues.
Yeah, and there's a lot in there because the only and I love what you said, start where you are. You don't need to compete with the next person. You can be inspired and learn from the person who's a little bit ahead of you. You can teach the person behind you a little bit. You can share, and that's actually a big value in our community. That, I mean, that's why we created it, because we can learn from each other in this process. The thing that really now long term, if I look at the coach, your coaching business, if you were to take two people who started with the same purpose, same heart, dedication, well, one person worked heavily on their transformation and their skill sets, and here's how you work on your skill sets. You are consistently serving people on a consistent basis. You're actually coaching people. You're not just saying that you're a coach and you're not going through courses only. You're actually serving people, and you're part of the industry, which means that you know what's happening in the business world of the coaching business, and you know what's happening around what works and what doesn't work, which means that you're part of some organization, community, something that is constantly giving you feedback and from the marketplace, plus you're serving people, so you're testing out your skill sets. If you're not doing those two things, then you're not growing your skill sets. And I think that's the biggest indicator of your success over the long term, is that you're actually growing your skill sets by serving others, by being part of this industry. And that's true for pretty much any industry at that point, because once you get to a certain level of success, you're like, well, what differentiates you from other, if that coach is really good and they have their unique thing, but then now they don't know how to attract more clients because they don't understand marketing, they don't understand sales. So even though they can serve a lot of people, they can't attract enough people to go through their process, so they fall behind. That means they get less practice, less experience, and this coach moves ahead. And that would be the biggest indicator. So are you doing those things? And to be honest, most coaches don't do that. Most coaches will go through one course after another course. If you actually look at their calendar, not enough people to serve. They don't know how to attract people to serve. They don't know how to share their message. They don't know how to get people to get on a call with them, paid or unpaid, to be honest, in the beginning. They don't know how to do that. And to be honest, there are a lot of fears and anxieties and all sorts of stuff in the background that's stopping them from doing that.
Yeah, I think you said two things. The two things are you plugged in to the coaching world? And two, are you practicing as a coach? Those are the two things, right? Are you plugged in? And so if you're not plugged in, you need to find a community like say CMC, Coaching Master Community, that can get you plugged in and staying in the know of what's going on and hearing feedback from other coaches. Like, do you have colleagues? Do you have people that are with you on this journey so you can stay plugged in? And then practicing. Are you out there every single day building your clientele, building your service, building your impact, building your skills, practicing, doing sessions, having coaching conversations? That's the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the part where you can very quickly differentiate. All I have to do is ask two coaches who are saying they're doing the same things. Well, how many calls do you have booked on your calendar in the next 2-3 weeks? And then this one, if somebody says, no, I have calls booked pretty much every other day, I already know that they're going to get their business. They just need to tweak some things here and there. This person is like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm getting this course. I'm learning that thing. I've just gone through 18 hours of this program. Nothing wrong with it. I've gone through all that. But then there is no point where they make a decision that enough information download, let me go into implementation. And that's the differentiating factor. And that's also a big purpose of our community, is that we're not an information-based community. We do give information, but our goal is to help you with the transformation piece. How can we get you to implement what you've learned? How can we push you to move forward as a coach? And a lot of times there's one exception to what we said before, is that a lot of coaches become part of these certification communities who do very little in the business side. Most of these coaches are new. They're colleagues. They do practice coaching. And I did that for years. Nothing wrong with it. I think it will help. But the problem is that none of them have put, I'd say not none of them, about 90% of them have not put themselves out there in the marketplace. And the ones who have, they're too busy to even talk to them, to be honest. And so they're always interacting with those who have the same exact problems, same struggles, and they don't know the way forward. It's like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah. And it's a lot easier. It's so much easier to be like, I'm making progress because I'm beta coaching with another coach. Yeah. But that doesn't actually make you progress. It might give you experience, it might give you some skills, a little more confidence. But how much more valuable would it be, even if it was free, to coach a real client in the real world who's not a coach, who's beta? Because that's what that is a safety mechanism for you to not feel uncomfortable with that process to go out and serve other people, right? That's a safety mechanism. And if you're stuck in safety mechanisms and getting information, this brings us full circle back to the beginning of the podcast. You don't need more information as much as you need to practice and to get in the game and push yourself to be uncomfortable with the part of getting real clients and of serving clients and of taking yourself to the next level. What does that look like? And that's something I'm working on in my business more. I'm mostly referral based, but I'm actually starting to do a lot more ritualization of my outreach. And part of outreach is ritualizing the referral asking process too. Because I get referrals, and most of my business is done with referrals without really asking. But now I'm starting to change that. I'm starting to say, like, it's better to ask. In the last couple of years, really, I've started asking for it and having processes around what does it mean to ask for a referral? Do you provide them the clear way to do it? Are you continuing to tell them that you want to do it? Because honestly, at the end of the day, like, if you're getting referrals, that tells you you're going in a good direction, right? Referrals are lifeblood of a business. If you don't want to have marketing costs or or advertising costs, referrals is what'll do it. So don't be shy in talking about referrals. And the thing about competition is, if you're getting a referral, there's almost no competition now, because this is a trusted person who's told them to call you and to work with you, right? They're like, okay, I've gotten somebody from somebody I know and trust who's been through the process, and I've seen that change. This happens to my clients all the time. They'll refer their spouse or a family member or somebody they know. And that person now is like, I've seen what's happening with that person. Let me do this. And they're not going to be looking at other coaches. So that's not a competition, really.
Yeah, I love that. And just based on all the things that we've shared, a couple of 2-3 quick tips. One, if you want more referrals, I literally did that right before the call. I'm going through the sales process with one person, and he was connected to me by one of my clients. And I just sent a message, and I think I learned this from my business coach. We learned from Steve Chandler. It's like, thank your clients at least 4 to 6 times. Don't even worry about the money you send them or referral fee, and it's like, thank them multiple times and share the specific details. And I sent them a message saying, hey, thank you for connecting me with this person. He really needed the support. Thank you for your trust in me and your care for this person. And I'll probably send another message as he makes progress, so they feel like they're contributing, because that's why they're connecting me to them, because they want to help them. It's just that they're not helping them directly, but they're helping them through me. So that's a quick tip for you to get more referrals if you don't get enough referrals. The other piece of it is, if you want to grow as a coach, do your beta coaching with any coach in your certification, but get at least 3 other clients, paid or unpaid, and you're working with them every week. 3 other clients, paid or unpaid. If you don't know how to sell a paid program, find free clients, but they're out there. Like, I don't even care if they're part of your family or friends, get them, because the feeling of that will make you feel like a coach. And then find one coach who is experienced, who has sold coaching, and get coaching from them. Either you hire them or be part of a community like ours, where we give you coaching, but we actually take you through the sales process, and we have enough experienced coaches that will help teach you the model for it. If you just did those couple of things, you'd be ahead of 95% of the coaches out there.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the thing. If you can be that easily ahead of 90, not easily, but that's simply, it's simple but not easy, ahead of most of the coaches, how much less competition does that put in your mind now? Which allows
Yeah.
you to not worry or fear about this idea of competition. As long as you're in the game and practicing and building up your relationships and clientele, you don't really need to worry because you're building people who want to work with you and refer you.
Yeah, for sure. And always remember that you're building a business that's unique to you, unique to the kind of clients you want to serve, unique to your purpose. Connect with those things. As a coach, you know how that's important. Your vision, your purpose, the kind of business you want to, yes, learn from other people's models, but ultimately you're going to build a unique business that matters to you. And that's the part that I love about the coaching world. Is you can do it in so many ways. There are not a lot of like guideposts there that you have to do it this way, that way. It's like you can, this is, I think, a unique phase in the coaching world where you can do that,
It's
where there's a
uncharted
lot of
territory,
demand.
and you can do it. You can design it whatever you want.
You can design it a lot of way. And a lot of times when you get these thoughts of competition and you see a lot of coaches, encourage them, challenge them, let them go, because the more coaches are there, the more people get served by other coaches, the more this industry builds, the more clients we're going to get. That's not a negative thing. And it's good for us to have competition. And if you want to outcompete other coaches, start doing some of the things that we've shared with you. You will outcompete a lot of coaches. Most coaches will not stay long enough for this to work. And if you can stay long enough and do some of the things that we talked about, you will be a successful coach. And if you need our support, definitely go to cmc.school. No, cmc.coach. Sorry, we changed that. cmc.coach and connect with us. We have a free community. You will get a lot of resources. You'll get the live podcasts and other support that we can give you completely for free. And if you're ready to join us point in our paid program, you can join us there too.
Great, awesome. So if you want to join us in our community where we get the raw, unedited live podcast with, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is a kind of an edited version, but if you are, and it's probably a little delayed from when we originally recorded it, but if you want all of the, the mistakes and the little vulnerable pieces that get edited out, just raw, you can join us in that community. It's all free within our community. And we also have a pro membership for those who really want to commit to that process. We can tell you all about that. But for now, thanks for listening. Go out there and dedicate yourself to be doing the things that most coaches are not going to bother doing, the things we talked about today. And if you do what people aren't willing to do, you're going to have results that people aren't going to get, which is ahead of, any thoughts of competition you may have.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see
Especially
you next week, same time. And make sure you check out this other video. That's how you can make more money, or why coaches don't make money.
The other part of this is the competition holds people back from making money, and they worry about competition, so they don't do the things we've talked about in the podcast today. So we have another podcast on why coaches make no money, and part of it is this. So if you want to watch that, that'll be linked in the description, or it might appear somewhere where Faisal was waving on the screen here on YouTube. Or click the link in the description. Yeah. We'll see you next week. Make sure you like and share this video, and we'll talk soon. Okay. Take care. Bye.